huddling around the ball.
Couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it, Julie. Honestly, I watched Saturday night and just like, I get it, they want to show they're together and whatever, and they want a bond before a game, but do they have to do it there? I just see no need for it.
Team leaks, conceding 8 to the French farmers that they wanted to play in the Champions League.
Get me out on PSG, man, so we can get them out and have no excuse this time as well.
A transfer ban.
Been handed a suspended first team transfer ban, an academy transfer ban, and a record fine of more than £10 million from the Premier League.
What the hell is going on at Chelsea? The huddle photo always kills me because it looks like one of those cutscenes in a video game where the NPC glitches through. If I was a Chelsea fan, I would start to tune into other sports or just other teams. I feel like Chelsea went into the season with so much confidence. They had won the Club World Cup. They had signed some new players. And Enzo Maresca seemed to be really instilling his philosophy onto the squad. If you guys remember, at one point last season, Maresca's Chelsea were the only team that were actually competing with Liverpool and pushing them at the top of the league. Maresca's side got a lot of praise from other managers.
He's one of the most attractive managers to watch. The way they play, the way they attack, the way they defend, and you can appreciate clearly their level.
And when they beat the defending European champions, it felt like a turning point. It seemed like they were a few players away from really making some noise. But fast forward, and that is not the case. The man who started the year on the sidelines for Chelsea is no longer there, and he was replaced by Memphis Depay with glasses, who is not a fan favorite. It's another example of Blueco taking one step forward, then 2 steps back. Chelsea are just so frustrating to watch right now, and it's getting harder to defend what's going on. It's actually unbelievable that a club with this much money doesn't have one center back who's a reliable defender. And what makes it even worse is that this didn't come out of nowhere. At the start of the season, reportedly, the board literally turned down Enzo Maresca's request for new center backs, even after Levi Colwill got injured. I mean, that decision alone tells you everything about how this squad has been built. Maresca ended up getting sacked. I mean, realistically, he left on his own, he packed his bags and said, I'm out of here. But whatever way you want to spin it, Maresca was never really the issue. He wasn't perfect, and the results were shaky towards the end of his tenure too. But I felt like he was doing a solid job with what he had. You could see an actual direction there. The bigger issue has always been recruitment. Joao Pedro looks like a good signing, but even this poor guy, we might feel differently about him in 6 months. But beyond the Brazilian, everyone's been underwhelming. Garnacho and Gins have been so bad. Delap, while cheap, just looks too raw. He just doesn't feel like a Chelsea level striker yet. And the biggest issue of all, no center backs brought in, so the defense is still ass. Then you look at someone like Wesley Fofana, who cost almost as much as Guardiola, yet you haven't really seen performances anywhere near the level of the Croatian. I just don't understand how it can be a new year and Chelsea still have the same problems. The goalkeeping situation, no center backs, needing better wingers. The fans are getting frustrated, and how can you blame them? The finishing has been awful. The team looks completely toothless. If Joao Pedro isn't scoring, nobody else is. There's no clinical edge, and it's costing them constantly. You have Cole Palmer, who is still dealing with his injury. And as we know with Yamal and other players who have that same problem, it's a day-to-day thing. Sometimes they feel good, sometimes it can feel like ass. On top of that, the football itself, at times, it's just boring. Without Estevao, who's basically the only player willing to take risks and dribble, it's just sideways passes, back passes, no real threat. At times, it's really painful to watch. The squad is too young, there's been way too many transfers, too much money spent, and yet in certain positions, there's still not enough quality players. At one point, the people that are making these decisions, the people who are doing the squad building, have to be held accountable. Because every season starts the same way. Everybody says Chelsea are ready to challenge, and yet every season, more or less, ends up in disappointment. Now we get to Liam Rosenior. Now I've talked about Rosenior before. I made a bunch of videos hyping him up when he was initially appointed, looking at his journey and what are his strengths and what he could bring to this Chelsea team. At the same time, for the people who actually watch those videos, I also mentioned his weaknesses. The fact that he hasn't managed at the top level for that long. The fact that he's now used to having players with big personalities and big egos under his leadership. And the fact that he's never been at a club like Chelsea that have such massive expectations. So the risks were always there. Plus, I've been on record saying I liked Maresca and I thought he was building something. But naturally, when things go wrong now, the immediate blame goes to the new guy in charge. You've got a manager who probably wasn't ready for this level yet, but he was thrown into one of the biggest jobs in football. I mean, just look at the decision he made with the goalkeepers. He dropped Robert Sanchez and started Jorgensen in the game against PSG, and it completely backfired. Jorgensen struggled badly playing out from the back, which was supposed to be the reason that he was picked over Sanchez, and Chelsea ended up conceding 5 goals in that first leg. Rosenior said he prefers him because he fits the possession style better, but the reality was that Sanchez was the safer option, especially when it came to actual goalkeeping. It was Sanchez who was in goal when Chelsea bodied PSG at the Club World Cup, and he actually played a massive role in that win. But here's why I don't really blame Rosenior as much as other people. Because let's say you have a first-year medical student, and you just throw this guy into the hospital and ask him to do a triple bypass surgery. Do you blame the student for failing, or do you blame the idiots that put him in charge of that operation? That's what the Rosenior appointment feels like to me.
Show you, hey, Liam Rosenior, I've been there. You're disappointed that they allowed that ball to go inside. But we're not at a training ground here where you can go like, oh, let's start again. So since you talked about players do not react and they like to be coached, or coach like to maybe not give them that freedom, then coach it. Because there is a mistake. We all know there is a mistake. So he's not coaching it on the field. And unfortunately, I said to you, I've been there. He's not even looking at what's happening. Goal. You understand what I'm saying? It is not easy. It's easy to talk.
Anybody putting all the blame on the coach and ignoring the ownership is missing the bigger picture. Yes, Rosenior looks out of his depth at times, but the real issue is the people who hired him. And let's be real, this guy from day one has had a target on his back. You know, people talk about pretty privilege for girls. Well, for guys, there is aura privilege. From the beginning, nobody bought his LinkedIn Liam act. They called him a performative manager. It was always going to turn ugly when the results dipped. Dear Diary, it's day 74 as the Chelsea manager, and they still haven't figured out I'm Barack Obama's brother.
Bruh, look at this dude.
But again, what do you actually expect him to do in a Champions League knockout game, lining up with a defense like Sarr, Chalobah, and Hato against one of the best teams in the world? Who is he supposed to even bring on? Like PSG sub on Doué, Chelsea had to bring on Delap. What's funny is that when he initially came in, he was doing some very good things tactically. In his first month, Chelsea played 9 games across 4 competitions and won 7 of them. The only losses came against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. In the Premier League, he was quite dominant, winning his first 4 games in charge. That might sound super simple, but at the time, one of the biggest issues with Maresca's Chelsea was that they weren't winning the games that they were supposed to win. Rosenior had fixed that quickly. Not only was the football looking good, but the vibes were awesome.
And hopefully we can still see more ice. Sorry. Sorry, that just threw me.
I think today was my dream game, my first trophy. Man of the match, 2 goals. The gaffer is very good.
The players had talked about how they enjoyed his human touch. Guys like João Pedro and Andre Santos, who had played under Rosenior at Strasbourg, got a lot better. They looked infinitely better under the new manager than they ever did under Maresca. Enzo Fernandez was looking like a beast. Whether he was being used as a number 10 or as an 8, he was balling out. And he was reminding the world why he's one of the very best out there in his position. In fact, in January of 2026, Chelsea pulled off something that they had never done in the Premier League. Away at West Ham United, they were awful in the first half and went down 2-0. A few weeks earlier, that game was probably over. Instead, Liam Rosenior acted immediately. He made 3 big changes, and Chelsea flipped the game, scoring 3 unanswered goals, and Enzo Fernandez smashed in a stoppage time winner. It was the first time in Premier League history that Chelsea had won a match after being 2 goals down at halftime. Even bigger than that was what happened in Europe, when Chelsea beat Napoli 3-2 away from home. That result sealed Chelsea's 6th place finish in the Champions League phase, and it gave them automatic qualification for the round of 16. 2 games, 2 very different situations, but the same theme. Chelsea were becoming a team that just never gave up and were able to pull out results even when everyone had written them off. But despite all of that, the doubt still followed him. Rosenior at the time was delivering results and a clear style, but many Chelsea fans just never believed in him. Even the small group of people that had Rosenior's back, well, those guys are turning on him too. The players talked about how they appreciated how human Rosenior was, although with some of this guy's answers, I still think he might be an NPC.
English manage, if you split the two words, it's man, age. You're aging men. You're aging men.
He was joking with the players and messing around in training. But as soon as Chelsea started losing, I knew the media would try to frame Rosenior's more human touch as an example of him not having any authority in the locker room. Everybody had a laugh. What players seem to appreciate the most is how human Rosenior is. He's not distant or cold. He jokes with the players, he messes around in training, and he keeps things relaxed without losing standards. Journalists have described it as a real reset in the dressing room, though I do think that when Chelsea start losing, the media will try to frame Rosenior's more human touch as an example of him not having authority in the locker room. Let's see. I knew that all of his little quotes and moments were going to be seen as unprofessional and cringe as soon as Chelsea stopped winning games. And all of this goes back to Blueco. It always had. The opportunities to fix the squad have been obvious for multiple transfer windows now, and they just ignored it. And when something actually showed promise, like Maresca, they immediately start to look elsewhere. I mean, reportedly they were negotiating with De Zerbi even back when Maresca was in charge. Like them not bringing in a center back even after Colwell's injury, it makes Chelsea not feel like a serious footballing project. It feels like mismanagement on a massive scale. It's hard to see how things would improve under this new ownership. Let's say they got rid of Liam Rosenior. Well, who's going to replace him? Are they actually going to go for a world-class big-name manager? Or are they afraid that the ego of a manager like that would disrupt the status quo? Because I feel like they would just go and get another yes man who will do whatever the higher-ups tell him to do. What makes things worse is how it's all played out on the biggest stage. Chelsea got completely outclassed by Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, pundits like Jamie Carragher had already said that Rosenior was never going to win major trophies.
I don't think it's an appointment that I think is going to sort of push Chelsea on to win a Premier League title or a Champions League trophy, and that's what Chelsea should be aspiring to. That's what they've been used to. At
best, the hope was that he just won the games that Chelsea were supposed to be winning, which was an issue under Maresca, but that has not been enough. Like I said earlier, there was a brief moment where Rosenior's Chelsea looked really good, and everybody, and I mean everybody, was impressed by how quickly he had implemented his ideas. But it seems like once the new manager bounce faded, the same problems came back to the surface. Draws against Leeds and Burnley, then a spanking by the croissant lovers over 2 legs in Europe meant Chelsea were getting cooked. Suddenly that Club World Cup win started to look more like a Maresca achievement, or maybe just a one-off. The difference between Chelsea and PSG was so clear, because the funny part is Chelsea had more shots on target, similar chance creation, even similar expected goals, but PSG were just so much more ruthless. Every time they got near the box, they scored. Chelsea, on the other hand, just wasted all of their chances. That's the difference at the top level. Clinical finishing. I mean, PSG were bringing on a golden boy like Desiree Doué off the bench. They brought Kivica Kvaratskhelia off the bench in the first leg. You know what Chelsea were doing? They were bringing on Garnacho with instructions when they were down 8-2. And that's why that loss hurt even more. It was a lot like their defeat to Real Madrid under Lampard a few years ago. 3 years and over £1 billion spent later, and Chelsea are still getting knocked out comfortably in the round of 16. It's embarrassing. But the frustrating part is that the sporting directors never seem to get the criticism and pressure that they should be getting. Maybe Erbali goes into the dressing room and says he's disappointed. You know, him, Boli, and Rosenior can all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and give a Ted Lasso type speech. Like seriously, with all that money spent, how do you get this kind of defending? At the same time, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I still think there's quality in the midfield. They have some good players in the attack now, even at fullback. But nights, like the one against PSG, should be a wake-up call. This team is nowhere near the elites, and they desperately need more experienced center back. So in a way, this season is going as expected based on the squad that Chelsea have, which is a little bit sad given the amount of money that was spent.
It's not an admission. It's a reality of where the group are. They've played over 100 games in 18 months. They've had no break in terms of the international games, the travelling that, say, João Pedro, Enzo Fernandez and Moi Caicedo do to South America. It's not an excuse. This is a byproduct of success of the Club World Cup, and it's a great thing that the club achieved at the Club World Cup. But you're seeing with Reece, You're seeing with players that if I don't manage their minutes, their likelihood of getting injured is increased very highly.
When you go into a Champions League knockout game with one of the most inexperienced defensive lines imaginable, after spending so much money, well, it just sums up your entire sporting project, if I can even call it that. Yes, the ownership, the sporting directors, and Liam Rosenior all deserve to get some level of the blame, but the players also have to be held accountable. Guys like Palmer, Caicedo, they've been hyped up, but at some point they need to deliver consistently too, no matter the manager. They need to face reality, because when you have someone like Enzo Fernandez, who was supposed to be one of the faces of this project, already considering his options, it kind of tells you everything. The poor guy was sold a dream, and right now that dream looks further away than ever. What's worse is they're dealing with problems off the pitch too. Chelsea were hit with a 1-year transfer ban and a £10 million fine by the Premier League, but there's a catch. The ban is suspended for 2 years. So basically they can sign players as long as they don't mess up again. There's no point deduction or anything like that, which is a huge relief for the club. It's the last thing they could afford right now as they compete for a Champions League spot. There's also a separate punishment for the academy. Chelsea won't be allowed to sign youth players from other Premier League or EFL academies for 9 months. All of this actually comes from financial issues that happened during Abramovich's ownership. Between 2011 and 2018, according to The Athletic, the club made payments to unregistered agents tied to transfers of players like Eden Hazard, David Luiz, and Nemanja Matic. In total, over £47 million was paid in deals that broke Premier League rules. Chelsea actually self-reported these problems after the ownership changed in 2022, and that saved them a lot of trouble. Because they cooperated fully, the punishment was actually reduced. Without that, they could have been banned for 2 full transfer windows and fined £20 million instead. According to The Athletic, Chelsea made it very clear that they were taking the situation seriously and working actively with the regulators. This actually isn't the first time that Chelsea have been punished either. UEFA fined them about €10 million back in 2023 for similar financial reporting issues. And there's still an ongoing FA investigation into dozens of alleged rule breaches from the same era. So this might not be the end of it. There's also an interesting financial detail linked to all of this that I noticed in the Athletic article. When Blueco bought the club, apparently they held back £150 million in case of penalties related to the old ownership. So any fines like this will come out of that pool of money, not directly from the current owners. The biggest takeaway for Chelsea is relief. I think the club feared a sporting punishment like deducted points or them being kicked out of a competition. Right now, they've walked away with just a slap on the wrist. The academy restriction isn't ideal, especially since Chelsea loves signing young talents, then selling them for profit, but it's not something that will completely disrupt their system. It's a messy situation tied to the past, but it's one that Chelsea can move on from. I wish I could say the same about what's happening on the pitch. The one bright spot from this season has been the progress of João Pedro. To see how good the Brazilian has been ever since joining Chelsea, you have to watch this video right here.